Hello and welcome back to another week of the DP World Tour picks and bets. Skylar Hoke here. I know it has been a substantial amount of time. At least it feels like it in the golf space. Even 1 week without an event felt like a long time too. But Tom, it's great to see you. I know we didn't do any shows in October, few life things, but how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, good. Yeah, we've both had busy schedules, haven't we? And with the golf sort of calendar or schedule sort of winding down, at least on the PGA Tour, we've kind of taken a step back, and now we're back for the two big events of the DP World Tour, right? And it's a funny one because they're really exciting events in their own right, but it also feels like the race to Dubai is kind of a little bit anticlimactic at the top. The more interesting factor for us, I guess, is who's going to get those PGA Tour cards.
Yes, that's what's relevant in my end. Yeah, I mean, it's always I don't know. I'm not a fan of how they run it, just because these guys end up. I mean, Rory's 1,500 clear, right? I mean, it's basically over. So I think from the PGA Tour card perspective, huge sweat is on, and I mean, it can still get swung. Like nobody's safe. I think like those bottom five guys or bottom four probably five if you stretch it a little bit, but are all probably on the cusp of not holding on if things don't go their way in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think that talking about kind of like the weirdness of it, like Rory's sewn it up by playing 10 events, and 4 of those are majors, right? And Tristan Lawrence has had a really good season, 24 tournaments, and he just can't catch him. Rasmus Højgaard, similar, to come good at the right time. The one thing I would say, I suppose, is that they're not the best players, like Tristan Lawrence and Rasmus Højgaard. I'm better than Rory McIlroy, so I guess in that term, like he is better than all of them. But yeah, I mean, look at the names we've got: Lawrence, Rasmus Højgaard, Matteo Manasseh, Nicholas Norgard, Jesper Svensson, Rikoya Hoshino, Sebastian Soderberg, Jordan Smith, Guido Migliozzi, and Romain Langasque are the PGA Tour cards. I mean, if you'd have asked me if Romain Langasque was going to get a PGA Tour card at the start of the season, if you'd have asked me 5 events ago, I still wouldn't have put him in for one. And he probably already had one. But there's certainly players on the periphery that, the McKibbins, the Ollisons, those types of players that I think are going to be, chomping at the bit and ready to go on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, I've said it all along this year, but I'm very bullish on this group of guys. I feel like could compete and all have very strong ball striking games that I think, could hopefully show up. I mean, if I'm rooting for people just off the list, I mean, I do think McKibben could be an absolute smash on the PGA Tour, the way he hits it off the tee. And if Bradbury could do enough down the stretch, man, he would be the one. It does shift so much, like we talked about. Like we were talking Laurie Cantor PGA Tour card, a month ago.
Yeah.
They have the baby. He misses Wentworth, and now he's on the outside looking in by a decent amount. So it's a little interesting there, especially because there's been more talk. There was an article yesterday talking about like his ban that he faces as he steps on like the chance of getting there and what would happen if he got on the PGA Tour. So I don't know. It's just interesting to play and just praying Guido gets through.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll go on to that a little bit as we're going through this video. But yeah, look, there's a great, it's a funny old story. Like Sebastian Soderberg earned this in the first half of the season, and then he's done okay actually since he's come back from his break. But there's just players that have just peaked at the right time. Nicholas Norgard, I mean, how has he changed his fortunes in the second half of the season? Manacero has completely changed his career this year, early win, and then steps up in big events. So really looking forward to this. This event in its in isolation, Sky, the Abu Dhabi HSBC Championship, is one that we normally get the start of the year. Obviously, a couple of years ago, we moved over to Yas Links, which was a new course then as well. So we've got a couple of years of data, but it's going to be interesting to see how relevant that is in November versus January or February, whenever we normally play it.
Yeah. It's normally a course that can get affected quite a bit by the wind. It doesn't seem to be as much into play this year, but you're exactly right. I mean, the winners of this event were Thomas Pieters in 2022, Victor Perez in 2023, which I believe was a winner on our card, actually,
Yes.
back there to kick off the season. But yeah, different time of year. I kind of associate this event to the COVID year when they used to play it at the fire course compared to next week at the earth course, right? But in Dubai, a lot of events throughout the season in this neck of the world. So I think we do have some corollary combinations we can play with some of the guys that have at least shown up to this part of the world. And of course, you do get golfers who have not played the European Tour or DP World Tour all season playing. Rory McIlroy, Hatton, Fleetwood, Neiman playing, Lowry, a bunch of guys here at the top. Tom, did anybody interest you, 20 to 1 and under?
To say interest me would be tough. Fleetwood's hitting the ball really well and obviously loves this part of the world. The rule that we apply to you of not letting you bet him at 10 or 12 to 1, I'm certainly not going to do it at 8. I think one of Rory or Hatton could just go and win it. But that's not that telling. It's actually the kind of ones in between, the 22 to 1s, where like I didn't know if I was going to get to a Rasmus Højgaard or a Robert McIntyre, and I was surprised actually how McIntyre's played in this event. Slightly underwhelming, which led to an easy jump off there. But no, not massively. I felt like it was a good opportunity to get a bit of an outsider in. I know it's weird because I think when it was played in sort of January time, you had more of a chance of a bit of a sort of big odds winner. You would think that you're going to get the kind of top of the market, well sort of playing golfer in, but I don't know. I mean, everyone's had a bit of a break as well, haven't they? It's almost like we've had that kind of New Year break as well. So it's really tough to understand. I mean, it's a little bit of a linked type golf course where maybe the weather is going to have the biggest impact of it all. Neiman would certainly love to come and tear things up on the DP World Tour, but I don't know. I don't have a strong sentiment about anyone at the top, really.
So he was the one that I was super curious on because they priced him a little bit more appropriate than when they had earlier in the year when he was playing in Australia, in my opinion, when he was in the 20s at a weaker event. But like, what's the motivation factor? I guess I'm a little confused if he's just here for a big payday for the race to Dubai, which could absolutely be the case for some of the other live guys too, like a Hatton type of thing. But I thought Neiman would maybe make a play, but I guess that play probably doesn't exist for the full-time live players compared to like the Laurie Cantor. I just thought we would have seen Neiman more in the season to all then show up at the playoffs. This was a little odd to me.
Is he just like trying to force a hand by getting a card or something? Like I don't know.
Why wouldn't have he like done that a few more times during the year? I don't know. He played in Australia, and then the majors, and that was it.
Like, why is he allowed to play this event? That is what I can't quite work out. Like, why is Neiman and Moronk, etc., allowed in this event when they weren't in others?
I guess because they probably still qualified for the top, just off of 4 starts or 6 starts.
Yeah,
for
just
Neiman
being in the top.
Moronk.
But like, so they're getting in based on their top 70 ranking or whatever, and we're just saying that a qualification criteria doesn't exist for the regular events, so they can kind of ban them from that. Like it's a weird concept. Like before, like when it was Rahm playing in Spain and Hatton playing downhill and Koepka and all that, it was invites, right? Like it was tournament invites. Whereas now this feels like they've qualified for it through the race to Dubai ranking, and that's okay. It's still such a strange process. And I know there's talk about a deal being in place. I just wonder if they're just getting players in to see if they can qualify for the PGA Tour card, and they'll be like, well, look, they got their PGA Tour card through the race to Dubai. What can we do, sort of thing. I don't know if it's something like that.
Yeah, I mean, he could, right? I mean, you got a 12 to 1 golfer with 2 big weeks, know. I mean, it absolutely could force a hand. I mean, Hatton would realistically be in the market for the exact same thing too if he's not a PGA Tour holding card, member. So just an odd with those guys in, but very good golfers that make it a strong event. I don't start my card to beyond 50 to 1. So Tom, in that next range, who do you like the most?
Yes, I had a couple of players in here, and I've settled on one. The one I didn't go for was Jordan Smith, and I think I felt like the 40 to 1 was quite fair considering the way he's playing, the way he plays in this part of the world, the skill set that he has. But it's still Jordan Smith who struggles to win on any given week versus Rory McIlroy, Tyrrell Hatton, Fleetwood, Neiman, Lowry. So in the end, I decided that wasn't the case. But one player that I do truly believe can beat anyone in this field is Thorbjorn Olesen at 25-1. And look, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because 25-1 on the face of it doesn't feel massive, like with all those names that are in. But when you look at the form that he's in, 12th at the Irish Open with a strong finish, 12th at the Dunhill Links where he's 15th going into Sunday, 2nd at the Open de France where he's inside the top 4 all week, and then 7th at the Andalusia Masters in his last start. You then swap on over to the course form. He's played here twice, 42nd and 20th. The 20th being the worst. He was, he was 16th on Friday, 11th on Saturday. So for me, just the way that Olesen is playing, the way that he's hitting his irons, the form that he's got in the Middle East in general, he's a good player in this tournament overall. Second in this tournament in 2013. Qatar Masters has been second and third. He's won the Ras Al Khaimah, third in the Dubai Desert Classic. He loves this part of the world, hitting the ball well. And I just felt like he was the first person that caught my eye at the top of the market.
Yeah, I think it was a number thing for me. And I mean, it has been a little bit short game driven in the recent couple events. But again, he has been a long-term performer in that aspect. So it's not an anomaly for him to play that well like that. Minwoo, I think, had performed here in the past, performed this part of the country in the past, or part of the world pretty well. So he was worth a double take for me there. But realistically, I was quite okay. Price dropped on the next selection here, Tom, as we spoke to it. So I said I was willing to start my card beyond 50-1, but at 45s, I'm still okay with being on Nicolai Højgaard. I mean, Nicolai won, I guess, this playoff, right? He won the event last year in 2023, had finished second at this actual event. The Nedbank Golf Challenge was what it was, but it's the final 70, right, that were in there that played that event. So, I think he is somebody who has shown in big time situations. I mean, right, he was a 54-hole almost leader at the Masters. He's in the mix on Saturday. Like, big events don't sway it away, and he has kind of got his feet back under him, I think, after a back and forth type of year that didn't live up to expectations. 3 consecutive top 20s, top 10 in Korea for him recently. In this area of the world, right? He was a winner. Which one was it? Ras Al Khaimah, right, back in 2022. For him, where he was bombs away there, and kind of think he can, at least put that driver back in play to its degree. So 45s, I'm still good with. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see he's low. He's below 30-1 at some books right now. So I'm jumping on as early as possible for Nicolai.
Yeah, it's just one of those ones, isn't it, where he was so underwhelming on the PGA Tour. He played so well in the Masters, he played so well in DPL Tour in limited starts, and it was just, you just felt like he was going to get running on the PGA Tour quite quickly. And I guess that's that sort of word of caution, I guess, for all these players that look ready-made for it going over, the Norgard Mollers and the Jesper Svenssons and all those types of players that you just think they've got the perfect skill set and really struggle. But to your point, last 3 starts, 18th, 20th and 9th, really seems like he's finding his flow, finding around 66 at the Genesis Championship, which I think was his best round, or tied best round of those 3 events as well. So he's playing well at the right time, and his approach play has been good over those 3 events as well.
Yep, and I just think the ceiling game for him is there among a lot of stronger golfers.
Yeah.
All right, next one, mid-range. Is it still me, Tom? Let's double check here. Yes. Yep. So this was the one from a price standpoint that stuck out the most to me. And I mean, I'm probably not the most price sensitive as many bettors out there. And when I looked through it though, and just trying to think through the golfer he was 12 months, 24 months ago, and to what he's now being priced upon, I'm willing to risk that with Adrian Meronk. Adrian Meronk, among the better DP World Tour players of the last 3+ years. He's been phenomenal. Was set up for PGA Tour card, basically, right? I mean, going to be playing, and talked about, I guess, in a recent article, right, that just felt that stateside golf is not really his thing, and just more or less felt he was either being left alone or didn't have people surrounding him that could make it seem as enjoyable as what golf is for him, either on Live or on the DP World Tour, right?
Yeah.
Live he was pretty awful all year, right? I think, besides the early part of the year, he closed out with not a single top 20 since basically the PGA Championship. So disappointed in that sense, but you just take all these with caveats, right? I don't think it's worth investing into when the number is letting me take a risk on him at 55-1 for a golfer who lives in Dubai, been playing well in Dubai, has the power in his game to play here. He's just not a 55-1 golfer, in my opinion, when we get him in these conditions. So I'd rather risk it and be on early in this spot.
Yeah, I think he's probably the most difficult to work out, right? Because whereas others have made spot starts on the DP World Tour, or they've played okay in the majors, or they've shown signs of life somewhere, he hasn't. Like, other than the second in Houston in June, he has done literally nothing since the Dubai Desert Classic in January. I mean, he actually got off to a decent start on Live, 9th in Vegas, 6th in Jeddah, 15th in Hong Kong. That was fine. And then he just seems to just go, I don't know what happened. And the PGA Championship, he lost so many strokes on approach. US Open, he lost in 3 of the 4 categories. He was fine off the tee. The Open Championship, he was 50th, but he was pretty disappointing overall. And then you go to the Olympics and he was 49th. I just think, like, you're doing exactly what you've said, is in you're buying the price because you know the golfer he can be in this part of the world. And there's two lines of thought. He's either just going to play really well here because he's comfortable here and he wants to prove himself. But I felt like that article you alluded to, it's almost like heaped all this pressure on himself. A bit like Wyndham Clark did at the Masters, where he made this stupid comment about live golfers not having 3 rounds or whatever it was that he did. He's heaped all this pressure on now of like, I hated the PGA Tour, I hated the schedule, didn't want to do it, so I just took myself off to live. As soon as he plays badly again, he's just going to get absolute pelters after that. And so he's kind of putting himself under the pressure, which maybe that's what he needs to perform. I don't know. That would suggest that is the case. It concerns me that he never steps up in the majors after a really big year.
Oh, totally. And the profile should be great for him to step on. I mean, I really think the last, piece was him not making that Ryder Cup team. Like that was the last straw for him to be like, and maybe, I mean, it's been a mental year. Maybe it's been a lot of things. He said he's got a new swing coach. There's a lot of things going on, but worth this price discovery for me. Because again, those guys are showing up for a reason here too. Like maybe it is another paycheck when they don't need it, but maybe it's to prove a point as well that they're still going to beat the really good golfers.
It really depends, doesn't it? Like, he's going through these swing changes? Is he going through these swing changes to dedicate himself to becoming a great on the Live Tour, prepare himself for the majors because the Live Tour suits his schedule better? So once he figures it out, or is he just uncompetitive on the Live Tour because he just doesnn't care and he has literally just taken the money? It's so hard to know what is right with him. What we do know is that 90% of the time he plays brilliantly in Dubai. 80%, whatever the actual figure is, like 9 out of the 15 times he's had really good finishes. So I don't know. I just don't know with this one. It's like it's definitely guesswork.
And that's what, if it was 35-1, I'm good. I'm good on that. 55-1, I can take the risk personally. But if we look I
think his price strengthens your case for Nicolai Højgaard.
I kind of thought the same thing, was like when they were side by side, I was like, okay, I mean, Nicolai, but in theory, Nicolai did the same exact thing, except he went on the PGA Tour and basically did nothing instead of take a big bag of money. And then he at least came back and played three good events in a row. If Meronk did that, then,
like if Meronk did that, he's 16-1, right? And that's the difference. But I just think with Nicolai, like even before the kind of three run stretch, he had the 16th for the Masters, he had the 7th for the Olympics, the 14th in Denmark. Like, he had these kind of spot starts, and his approach play was so good even when he was playing bad in the PGA Tour that you at least had something to hang on. Whereas like Meronk just looks all over the place. So I'm really intrigued. I don't think it's a good or a bad pick. I'm pretty ambivalent to it. I just think it's so interesting. It's gonna be a really good case study to see where he's at with his game.
Yeah, for sure. One of my favorite things that gets to happen on this podcast, Tom, is when we align on a similar golfer. But then when we align on the golfer, the one and only golfer, Tom, that always makes me happy. So, Tom, I'll let you give the opening case for Guido Migliozzi.
The first part of the case is I just don't understand how he's priced. Like
Yeah.
he was 80 to 1, or he still is 80 to 1, I believe, on FanDuel, right? 80 to 1 about a golfer that is playing pretty well by all accounts. Now, there is volatility in Guido's game, which there always has been, right? Like he was 22nd at the Olympics, then missed the cut, 8th at Grand Cercier, then he misses 2 cuts, then he's 18th in the French Open. But 5th last time out with weekend rounds of 66 and 65, 18th in France, where he had 3 really good rounds and then just 1 bad one, 8th at Crans, where he again had 3 good rounds, 1 bad one. We know that the problem with Migliozzi is at the moment that he's struggling to finish off those rounds. But we already spoke at the top of the show about the fact that he's already in that list of PGA Tour golfers. So he's the 14th best DP World Tour player by rankings, right? And that includes people like McIlroy, Horschel, Fleetwood, etc., that are playing limited sort of schedules and just getting big points for majors and things like that. So you've got that. Then you've got the fact that he was 20th here last year, and he was actually he was the 36-hole leader, second after round 1, first after round 2, still 7th going into Sunday, and then just kind of fell apart on the final day. I just don't get it. I don't understand why he's such a big price. He's hitting the ball okay. It's not a standout for Guido, but he's had really good rounds. You'll know that by sort of like the round by round data. He's had a second place finish in Qatar in the past, 4th in Oman, 16th in the DP World Tour event in Dubai. Like he plays this part of the world pretty well. I think he's like based out here. Like,
yeah.
I don't get why he's such a big price. And if we think back to when he was that 36-hole leader, I'm pretty sure he was hitting like really nice shots under the wind. Like he was getting quite creative, and when people were struggling, he was stepping up hitting his best shots, and that's what we always allude to. Like we like that creativity. I just thought the upside at 80 to 1 about a player that we are very confident can win pretty much anything. He has shown that he can step up in elite company by his major finishes. Look, you could get a miscut out of Guido Migliozzi. There's no getting away from the fact that any given week, even when the stars align, he could miss the cut. But 4th at the US Open is outrageous. 4th and 14th in his 2 starts in the US Open. And so there can't be question marks about whether he can hang with these types of players at the top of the market. Like it simply can't be. He's had 4 wins. One of those was this year. He's lost another playoff as well. It could be 5 wins. One of the, Richard Bland ripped our heart out at the British Masters. And like, I just think he has this knack of sort of beating the higher performers as well. Like, I know Joe Dean doesn't look like a star name, but he's been brilliant this season. He beats him in the playoff with Marcus Kinhult, beats Rasmus Højgaard in 2022. Okay, the Darius Van Driel one isn't that exciting, but he is another winner. And then even like the Kenya Open when he won the first time, that was a year when Harding had already won, I think, the week before and went on to have a pretty good season. I think he's set for success.
I mean, the moral of the story too is he's 9th on the PGA Tour card. Like there's 2 weeks to change your career in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't really like openly spoke about,
This was what I was going to say.
Tour.
Do we know it's a motivation for him? It has to be.
So the one thing that I can remember really is after the US Open T4, he stayed around to play the Rocket Mortgage. I think it was the Travelers. It was the Travelers the next week in the US and performed well at it too. Finished 13th at that Travelers Championship. That's really the only shot he's gotten stateside and took advantage of it, where some of those guys don't capitalize on that or travels too much or this and that. Like Guido made the point. I'm hard pressed to not think. I mean, I mean, majors are majors, yes, but I mean, it's not like he's not attempting to open qualify for these things and a lot of stuff. So I don't think he would be passing on this. I don't think anybody on the list is passing on it personally in their spots right now. So um above all else of what you said and how he trended and how he honestly didn't even play all that well outside of the weekend. His last time it was 3 strokes out of a playoff. This is Guido's time to change his career.
Yeah, and I think it's just one of those ones where he strikes me as you just look at him as an individual and the way he plays and the way he carries himself and the name, right? Like I think there is certainly a thing into that. All of that suggests that he could be like a star, and if he can just get going on the PGA Tour, because that's the only place he's going to do it. You can't really build stardom on the DP World Tour anymore, right? So I think he's like managed by Niall Horan, right? The One Direction guy at Modest. So they must be desperate to get that, because I really do believe, like, if we think that Aaron Rai can kind of make a career out of himself on the PGA Tour, then Guido Migliozzi certainly can. And that's not, a criticism of Aaron Rai. It's just the nearest comparison I can think of. Yeah, like I think he's. I don't know. I don't get the 80-1. I would have like if he was 50-1, I'd have been like, right, well, Sky, you're going to bet him because it's Guido Migliozzi, and I've got to either try and talk you out of it or just agree with you. But 80-1, there was just no decision to make.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think it's telling again, this PGA Tour, there was no reason he had to go play in Korea. Like there really wasn't. I believe he was the only player of eligibility that or of near that top of the board that was there. I mean, if you look at it, I guess Soderberg did play, who has a card, but other than that, nobody else in fringe contention, and we know Soderberg's battling things, was on that list. So like, why is Guido playing there? I believe it is because he wants to get his PGA Tour card.
Well, because hadn't he taken off a couple of weeks when we thought you should be playing to secure that spot, and now it's almost like he's geared himself to make a run now, before we were like, oh, maybe he's not that bothered about the PGA Tour, like he's taking weeks off when he really should be solidifying his position. All of a sudden, it's like maybe he's just played it really sensibly, like maybe he's well managed. He jumped up 6 spots last time, and he's just thought about things better, I think.
Yeah. So let's hope a couple big weeks for Guido. I've got another bang on the 80-1 number. I actually thought we'd get you here too this week, Tom. Johannes Veerman.
You do have me. I'm in.
Okay. Perfect. So I'll lead in then on the breakdown of Johannes personally. Oh yeah, you do have him on the list you sent me. So Johannes Veerman, somebody we've loved to bet, right? I mean, we really have been very, very high on his game. Somebody who you'd probably say has, pretty much been a disappointment on how much we thought he would kick on, right? I mean, realistically, he had an amazing 2021, a win there at the Czech Masters, a couple other really big Scottish Open, Irish Open weeks. But outside of that, the last couple of years have been middling at best, not a single top 5. And then he had one so far in 2024. But what he has started to show a little bit lately is that similar type of ball striking that we loved. Really, really high upside irons paired with a good off the tee game. And that has led him to an 8th, 14th, and 14th his last 3 times out. I mean, if you look at him overall, again, he really kind of flashed early in the year. And he's stateside. He was in the kind of the thick of it for a little bit. He was 10th, right? He wasn't going into Sunday in the ISCO, probably inside the top 5 until a Sunday 71 for him. But I mean, I think Veerman, maybe it's this association with an American-born player who's playing well overseas that fits the narrative of some of the golfers who have played well on the PGA Tour. But man, Veerman at this number, to me, I was absolutely going in on it.
There has only been one round in the last 3 starts where he's been outside the top 14. So at the Open de France, he was 2 rounds. He was 18th after round 1, 63rd after round 2, and then was 11th after round 3, 8th after round 4. Then he was inside the top 14 all 4 rounds at Andalusia Masters. He's actually inside the top 11 for the first 3 rounds. And then his last start, again, 20th after round 1, so I've misspoken a little bit. But like he's just been consistently inside that kind of top 20 all the way along. And he's the one knock would be that he hasn't quite got himself into contention over the last kind of 2 or 3 starts, or stayed in contention. He was after round 1 in Andalusia, but the third round 63 in France is ridiculous, right, Sky? And the fact that he's hit those irons so well that week and again last time out at the Genesis just really caught my eye. 9th, 25th, and 4th the last 3 starts in approach. He had 4 missed cuts before that, and then the time before that he was second in approach in the field. So he's really hitting his irons well when he makes the cut. Didn't make the cut here last year, which was disappointing. It was almost enough to put me off, but he wasn't playing as well. I don't remember him playing as well. To your point, he has been a little bit disappointing, and I do think we kind of value this American flag next to a player type thing too much. But he's living up to it over the last 3 weeks, and he's a big price in a decent field.
Yep. And he did that with the back against the wall in France too. I mean, he was outside of the number for the playoffs, into that event, and look what that round carried on. Right now, he's looking like he should be making it to the Tour Championship. Barring another decent week, and that's a pretty strong cap to put on your year for him after kind of sputtering in the middle of it.
Yeah,
so
I think it's funny, isn't it? Because I'm never quite sure what Veerman is in terms of just pure skill set, right? Like I feel like it's hard to kind of get a true grip of his talents, but for him to spike so well with his irons in recent weeks really caught my eye. There's obviously some work done to it. He's had an injury as well in the time frame that he's been disappointing. So just happy to see him back at his best, and let's see, especially with Guido and Veerman particularly of these picks. They're one of those ones, those classic ones where I say, I'll just wait for them in a better field. That's very much what Veerman feels like. Like he would be 28-1 in a normal field, and I don't know if I want to bet him, but these numbers, yes, he's got to be a better opposition. That's why the numbers are what they are. But I don't think the problem is him versus Rory McIlroy, him versus Fleetwood. It's just him versus himself and what his game is that week.
That's a good way to put it. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, double checked prices. Are we triple digits from here on out, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So before we get to that side of it, let's make sure we give a shout out to our audio listeners. You can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, The Mix, available on Mayo Media Network. Really appreciate the support. And again, apologize for the layoff. Had the couple hurricanes back to back in the state of Florida, so we had to get out of Dodge for a little while and still recovering a bit down here, but didn't want to miss our playoff events as they're big ones for us here. So again, rating, review, subscribe. We love the comments on YouTube. It goes a long way for just Tom and I, but also at Mayo Media Network, the support does. So thank you for that. And it's also close to my favorite show of the season that we're coming up with. We'll have to get that on the books here. Q School second stage wrapped up yesterday. I think one's wrapping up right now. Final stage coming up. Also very, very cool. I feel like everyone's Twitter friend, Monday Q Info, is going to be covering the DP World Tour. Q School, they're sending him over to Spain to cover that event. So pretty full circle for those that have followed Ryan, and getting to do that. That's super, super cool for him. But some golfers, before we get to that part of it, is there's a championship to be won. So Tom, first one is another alignment for us, correct? Bang on. Yep. 110-1. I went first with Veerman. You go first with Rosner.
Yeah, Anton Rosner is someone who I was really, I don't want to say reluctant, because I liked the bet and he finished in 4th place to kind of live up to it. I was very skeptical about the value of Rosner at 30-1 at the Genesis Championship, right? Like everyone was kind of talking to me and saying, well, like I get why you like the skill set. I can see why you like the course, but just felt like a short number. And then all of a sudden it kicks on over the weekend, 65-68 to be third after 3 rounds and 4th going Sunday. Should have really kicked on and challenged a little bit further. the skill set of Rosner is perfect for this type of golf course. That's the first thing. His ball striking is excellent. That's been good for a sustained period of time now. What we think Rosner is, I mean, I guess I'll throw it to you, like Skylar. How good do we think Rosner is? Is he a PGA Tour player in waiting? Is he someone that's just at his level? It's tough to really ascertain, I guess.
I think he's good, man. I think Rosner's pretty dang good. I mean, he hasn't gotten very many spots against the best of the best, right? I mean, you put him in the Genesis this year, T26, makes the Open Championship last year, second ever major T20 or third major T20. I think his iron game puts him in a spot where he can compete with a lot of people.
I guess it feels a little bit like Jordan Smith, right? Like we don't know necessarily that they've got the ability to win these massive events, and this is why he's the price that he is. But we know that he can put himself in the mix by just sheer quality play, right? And then you look at his kind of record, his 2 wins, or 3 wins, sorry, but 2 of them were the Qatar Masters and the Golf and Dubai Championship. Those are 2 big ticks already. You then got a 9th at the Dubai Desert Classic. Mauritius is fine as well. The Dunhill Links 4th. If we're looking at it as a kind of links event, Dubai Championship 4th. All his good stuff kind of feeds into this. So forgetting just the ball striking extraordinaire that he's been over the last few weeks, he's really just suited to this type of event. And then when you look at the course form, you could be easily put off by a miscut and a 50th. But when we look at the 50th last year, he was like really playing quite nicely. He was growing into the event 23rd after round 1, 9th after round 2, 7th after round 3, shot 78 on Sunday to fall away. And look, that might be the indictment of maybe when he has a chance to really kick on against big opposition, he struggles. But I'm willing to give him a chance with the way that he's hitting the ball. 110 to 1 in an area, a part of the world that he absolutely loves. For someone that's had 2 top 10s in his last 5 starts, and those 2 top 10s had come in at Wentworth when he's finished 7th and 4th in Korea, I thought was really eye-catching.
Yeah, so like the thing with Rosner, in my opinion, is when you get him on a run like this, or you get him, he has strung things together in the past, but also he can become a price-sensitive golfer, you know, in the sense of like he shows something, he's 30 to 1 in the DP World Tour. You know, he hadn't really showed much since the Scottish, and then he does that at Wentworth. Now, he was still 80 to 1 on a linksy, strong field event at the Alfred Dunhill. So, like, you could have made that agreement. But now, with everything that we have going for him in Dubai, I mean, again, what I think of this event is I vividly remember Rosner lighting up the fire course, right? Like, that's what I think of as the semifinal leading in to go playing the earth course was that. But, yeah, so you have more of a reason to get on him in this type of event, a low-scoring atmosphere. That Qatar win he had, you mentioned Guido had the runner-up. That was when Rosner bagged that 40-footer on 18 to win that event against him. And 40 feet is probably generous. It was probably longer than that. It broke my absolute heart. But, I think there's so much going for him in that. So to get him triple digits, I loved it.
I think one of the really big things, Sky, and Data Golf is the best place to kind of see this in a vacuum. You look at his performances this year, barring the Dubai Invitational, which doesn't help the story, but Dubai Desert Classic gain strokes on putting, Bahrain Championship gain strokes putting, Qatar Masters really good putting week. Never again good after that. So as soon as he leaves the Middle East, he's putting really poorly, comes back, putts okay in Korea last time out, and you think, well, that's maybe just a bit of a one-off. You then look at the DP World Tour Championship last year, putt really nicely. Qatar, it wasn't positive, but it was better. His biggest weakness is that putter. And if you look over the years, he's had really good success. If you go back to his wins in 2021, the run of sort of gaining strokes on the greens over there as well. There's obviously something about this part of the world that's agreeable with him, with his weakest part of his game, and that's really important.
Yep, 100%. All right. I think it's you first before me. Let me double check here. Yeah, Tom, you want to go into your last selection here?
Yeah, this is one where I've talked about him so much over a kind of 6 or 7 event stretch that if he then went on to win, I'd I'd be in trouble in terms of what I do with myself. But Jeff Winter has just been consistently showing up, right? Like in different capacities. He's had a chance to win at the Open de France. He didn't really back that up at the Andalusia Masters, but then he was 18th in a good field at Wentworth. He was 17th in a decent field at Crans, 27th in his home event in Denmark. And all the while, he's putting really nicely the last 5 events. He's hit his irons pretty well on and off for the most part. And again, talking about players just lifting their game in this part of the world, Jeff Winter absolutely does that. I think after he got his win in Mallorca, right, he went on and played really well in Dubai or Qatar, I think it was, where he just sort of continued the form. 6th in this event in 2022, 17th last year as well, middle rounds of 68 and 66. For me, it's just the value of continuing that form that he's showing in recent weeks versus what he's done in his career in the Middle East. It is someone that he's enjoyed. Yeah, 9th in the DP World Tour Championship in 2023, which I think came after that first win of his, and he had middle rounds of 66 and 64. Obviously, when Højgaard went on to beat Hovland, but yeah, I just think he's a better player than he probably gets credit for because he's not flashy. He's pretty old and he's sort of maturing at or coming into the peak of his form at maybe the wrong part of his career. But yeah, I think Jeff Winter at 125-1 is someone we should keep an eye on in the Middle East.
Yeah, I mean, your favorite. I think we're going on polar ends of the spectrum here with the final selections because mine's got at least a couple decades, it seems, on him. And I'm going with Casey Jarvis as my last selection at 175-1. Jarvis was among the, I don't want to say trendier, but among our like darlings of statistics, or at least profiles once we got him on full time of the DP World Tour. And I think making the playoffs for him is a good year. I think that at 21 years old, being able to kind of say that was what my year looked like, I think that's something that he will be proud of, and probably can settle in decently into chasing down a PGA Tour card next year, in my opinion. Now, for Jarvis, his experience in this area of the world isn't nearly the same as a lot of the other golfers here, but what he's kind of leaning in with is some unbelievable ball striking form. 3 out of the last 4 events he has played, his approach numbers have been absolutely lights out. If you look at progressive form, 27th in France, 36th at the Andalusia Masters, and then he was 6th last time out at the Genesis Championship while losing a bunch on the greens. So for him to kind of get in the thick of it, I think he was 2nd at the halfway point, had a bad Saturday. Jarvis really had a shot to kind of chase down Tom Kim and Ben An and getting himself, into the mix. His first real, I guess not even real, but when he was on the Challenge Tour, I mean, he was in, I think, 36 hole second place when he finished 9th in one of his early starts in the Joburg Championship at age 20. He was 67, 63 he opened with. And then, I just think Jarvis, the moon really is kind of the limit. Like he's got some who's been the best South? I mean, all the South Africans from, if you look at Bezuidenhout and Van Rooyen and all of these guys, I mean, they didn't have the amateur career that Jarvis did. I really think Jarvis has shown, and maybe these kids are just a little bit more better when they're of that age, but he's still so young. And if he's got this in his bag of tricks with his irons, a win here, it's deservedly priced at 175-1, but cashing an each way ticket or a top 5 or even a top 10 with him would be a big win. And I think Jarvis can do that.
Yes, I think with Jarvis, you've already pointed it out, so I don't have to. It's not news to you. The only thing that put me off is he just didn't have this Middle Eastern form, and the very small amount that he did was like a 43rd and a missed cut, right? So I just don't know that he's going to be good here. But there's no way that we can look at him and go, he will definitely struggle here. Like, he's been 4th and 3rd his last 2 starts in strokes gained approach. He hits the ball plenty far enough. 3rd and 3rd, I think, off tee to green overall. he is so eye-catching as a player. It's to your point of like, we haven't necessarily seen him take the step forward yet. I guess the one that I would kind of think about is someone like a Garrett Higo.
Yeah.
Where the difference for Higo is it just happened really quickly.
For sure.
And what he's doing now is he's actually struggling after the fact, right? Like he's got those 4 wins across the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour really quickly, like 20 wins on the DP World Tour, 2 in 2021, goes to the PGA Tour, wins in 2021 again. Took advantage of just an absolute heater, right? And I think it's not, I don't know if that's what's hurt him, whether it's just unsustainable, but like he's now having to grind back and figure it out at 25 years of age. Whereas it looks like Jarvis is going through the motions of like, look, I'm still only 21. I've hit sort of like I've hit contention at the halfway mark a couple of times. I've seen what it feels like. I've got the game. Haven't quite taken a step forward yet, but it's coming. And there's no reason why he then can't go and get 2, 3, 4 wins in the same fashion. As you said, he's had that amateur sort of pedigree already. And we just see it. We see it so often. I mean, you talk about South African players in general. I mean, Tristan Lawrence. I mean, he's absolutely changed his career in recent years, right? And this is Jarvis has already won on the Challenge Tour. He's already won the Big Easy Tour. He's had a great amateur career. My thing was just there was a lot of unknowns, and sometimes that's exciting. Like sometimes that's. Would I rather there was unknowns as opposed to someone that's played in the Middle East and missed 10 cuts? Obviously, right? I'd rather take the upside of someone could be really good. We could be talking about Jarvis in 6 events time, going, cool, he loves the Middle East. By the time he started January off really well there as well. Who would have thought Neiman was an expert in Australia, right? Like you just don't, these things happen really quickly. So the only negative I found was he hadn't really played in the Middle East, and I think that is quite important at this stage of the season and career. But that was the only hole I could find.
Yeah, totally agree. And I mean, he has been around the lead halfway points often and not really. Like Korea was backdoor, you know what I mean? Like on Sunday after falling out of contention, so we're going to get him probably in some swing season events as one of the better golfers in the field. And I'll be curious how they price him then and the trust there. But I think with the way he's playing right now, I want to chance it one more time against a big field.
Yeah, like he's been inside the top 5 multiple times at the halfway stage. A lot of it at home. Joburg Opens, South African PGA, STC Championship, 3 times on the Challenge Tour. One of those he converted into the win. So he's been inside the top 5 3 times on the Challenge Tour, and he's finished first, second, and second.
Mm-hmm.
So he converted that pretty well. And then the other stuff, generally, as he stepped up, has been reduced to just when he's been in South Africa. But the career one maybe is a little bit of a step forward, right? Like he was within 1 of the lead after round 1, within 2 of the lead after round 3. Took himself out of it, I guess, after round 3 with 4 strokes back. But fine, like he's learning. So I think Jarvis has got plenty to offer, and it's probably one of those where I look at it and just go, this is probably not the right event. I think he wants to get through these, get a strong finish on the rankings, finish 50th or 40th, whatever, and just say, look, it was a job well done, and then get into those swing season events.
Yeah, I can feel that for sure. All right, let's put a bow on it, Tom. If you want to review your card for me one more time.
Yep. So for me, I'm betting Thorbjørn Olesen, who best price is 25 to 1. Guido Migliozzi, whose price is still 80 to 1, which I can't quite work out. Veerman's actually shorter than Migliozzi. I think is he 70 to 1.
Veerman is 80 still here.
He's 80 still as well. So 2 there at 80 to 1. As from Rosner 110 to 1. And Jeff Windsor at 125 to 1.
Perfect. Nicolai Højgaard 45 to 1. Now good with that. Adrian Meronk 55 to 1. Guido Migliozzi 80 to 1. Johannes Veerman 80 to 1. Antoine Rosner 110s. Casey Jarvis 175. Tom, half of our card aligns 1, 2, 3 on the leaderboard would feel outstanding.
Yeah, and look, let's get Guido Migliozzi to win and just get on the PGA Tour. Like, I feel like we'll get some more PJ Tour content out of you next year if Guido's on there.
I mean, I'm gonna have to go to every single Florida event. You know,
would he base himself? He would probably base himself there as well.
If he's interested in basing himself in Sarasota, please, anybody close to Guido, let me know. We can find a spot.
Yeah, we can room him.
Yes.
But no, like Sky, really good to have you back. Obviously, pretty difficult time for you, family, friends, etc. During October, and I'm sure I speak for everyone that's kind of listening and watching that it's really good to have you back and talking golf and being able to concentrate on the fun things in life when it's been a really tough run, right? So good to have you back. Good to talk golf, and let's get a winner to crown off the next two events.
Yes. No, appreciate you, Tom. Appreciate all you guys listening, and we will catch you next week for the close of the DP World Tour season. Thank you so much.